She's got over 27,000 subscribers. Okay, this is a nurse we're talking about. And it's amazing to see her grow because whenever she started her YouTube channel, I started my personal YouTube channel. I remember seeing her on Instagram and finding out she was Christian and seeing where she's on the podcast. Can you believe that? She's on the podcast. So Nurse Katherine is here, and we're going to be talking about faith, nursing, motherhood, healthcare, all the good stuff. You do not want to miss this. Welcome back to the show, the Nice Veins Bro podcast, unfiltered conversations on God, wellness, and purpose. We are healthcare workers and clinicians really wanting to have unfiltered conversations on things that affect all of us, right? And so I'm a nurse. My wife, Lexa, is here. Thank you for being here, Lexa.
Hello again. Hello again.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm a regular at this point.
You are also a nurse, and we have a special guest with us today. Everybody welcome Nurse Katherine in the house. Yeah.
Good morning. Good morning.
I want to start out with the nursing story, okay?
Yeah.
So on your Instagram and on your YouTube page, you have the reason why you started all of this stuff in like your social media page and stuff. But if you want to give us kind of a rundown as to why, first of all, you went into nursing and why you decided to put it online through YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I come from a family of nurses. My mom's a nurse. My stepsister's a nurse. My mom's twin sister is a nurse. My cousin is a nurse. So
Wow.
growing up, and then everybody else is medical in our family. Social workers, speech pathologists, grandpa was a doctor, all the stuff. Then my grandma was his secretary. So it just keeps going. It just keeps going. So growing up, healthcare, nursing stuff, it was table talk. It was dinner talk. That was what it was. So, originally in middle school, I wanted to be a dolphin trainer. My mom said, nope, you're not allowed to be.
You are not allowed.
Yeah, she's like, that's probably not going to work out for you.
So were you made to, you were made, because Lexa can kind of relate to this. The
absolutely.
Filipino culture is kind of like you got to go into nursing. Is that what happened to you?
No, it was more of just like, well, I can't be a dolphin trainer, so I'm going to be a nurse.
That was your backup
There
plan.
were only two options.
Yeah.
Dolphins or people.
Yes. Yep. Literally, that was my thought process. Originally, and that in high school, I changed my mind. So I wanted to be a pediatric nurse, which never happened. So yeah, just growing up, that's why I went into nursing. It was just the family thing to do, and I grew up around it. It was just like, all right, I think
it was
I
a
really
natural.
It was
a
natural.
natural. Yeah. So what did you enjoy it when you went through nursing school, or were you like, oh, I hate this?
Yeah. So this was a huge reason I actually started my YouTube channel. I struggled through nursing school. I actually failed my first semester of nursing school. In that time frame, my dad had a liver transplant, so there was a lot going on. And he was given 6 months to live prior to that. So there was just a lot happening.
So many stresses, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of stresses. So failed that semester, had to wait an entire year to retake it, struggled through the entire rest of my schooling. But that's why I wanted to start my YouTube channel then. And my husband kind of helped me figure out, how can I help more nurses beyond just precepting them in the hospital? So that's where he said, well, why don't you start a YouTube channel? You can reach a lot more people. And now I have done that. I mean, like you said, I have 27,000 followers. That's, you have 8 nursing students on the floor for a week. That's a huge difference.
We were going to dive into the nursing portion yet, but I want to kind of go a little bit deeper into the YouTube and ask some questions about YouTube. What do you think has been, as I don't even know if you would consider, because it's kind of cringy to say, I don't know, but like a nurse influencer, how
I hate that too.
Yeah, how has it been to especially be an influencer during the pandemic and I'm sure that must have been a very interesting experience. But what have been the highs and the very lows of the YouTube experience?
Yeah, I would definitely say a low of the YouTube experience was just watching how slow it was to grow. You
Mm.
can compare yourself to other channels like you and I. We started at the same time. You were growing super fast in the beginning. I was not.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's just something you have to be like, you have to be okay with.
Yeah.
So you just have to be persistent with it. So that was definitely a low, and I don't want to compare my channel to other channels because there's things that I will talk about on my channel. There's things I don't want to talk about on my channel. My channel also started off just strict education, and now it's not really education at all anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely been a low, just myself, comparing myself to other channels. A high, as that influencer, knowing that my face has been getting out there, not that I'm looking for fame in this, but I'm looking to help other nurses in this, was that my last travel contract, my supervisor, or she was some type of supervisor position, she came up to me and she's like, did you know you look a lot like Nurse Katherine on YouTube?
No way. You got
so
recognized.
That was my claim to fame right there.
That is the best.
You're like, that is my name. So
Yeah, I'm like, well, that's because that is me. Yeah.
That is me. That is the best.
it's a big
man.
reveal.
Yeah.
That is
so
so
cool.
great. I feel like I would struggle with that a lot, like the comparison thing.
Oh yeah. Well, kind of a little backstory too is Alexander used to tell me when we were still dating, like a couple years ago, he'd say, there's this other nurse that's also doing YouTube and her channel. I mean, she's consistent. And that's the thing I think that he compared himself a lot to is the consistency, which kudos to you, like staying strong, continuing to post videos at a regular rate is really good, especially for YouTube.
That's right. It's the consistency.
Yeah. And there was a little challenging thoughts and feelings that he had because he wanted to do the same, but his path just turned a different direction. And I find that we as creators, as content creators or whatever you want to call it, your paths will always look different. Everybody has their own rate in which they post or grow or whatever it is. But it's so cool to see how you have grown since when you started. Yeah. We're both very
Look at us sitting
encouraged.
here now.
Look at
we're
us
collaborating now.
That's right. That's fantastic.
So cool.
You made a video recently about holistic care. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I was nervous to put that video out there. I absolutely think we are not going in the right direction at all. And with 7 years of bedside, even just in these 7 years, I have seen a steady decline. But I also think that is a generational thing too. Say our grandparents and our parents, they were raised without, internet. You can't just look things up on your own. You don't really know what alternatives you have to what the doctor is telling you. Our generation says, hold on, let me see. Is there something else I can do other than what you're telling me to do? And we were kind of raised to question kind of everybody rather than our grandparents who are like, oh no, I'm going to trust everything the doctor says 100%.
Absolutely. There's certain cultures too that are like that will, as soon as the doctor comes in, anything that he says is 100% truth. And I don't think, especially in the world that we live today, especially post-pandemic, where, you'll get a lot of pushback and people see that as negative, right? Oh, just accept what is being told to you. And I think that what you're saying, or to your point, is that when you have some of that pushback, the best ideas float to the top, because everyone's challenging each other. And when you have alternative medicine options, that should be exciting to all of us, right?
And isn't that why we are where we are in healthcare, is that people challenged things like, think about the crazy things they used to do back in the day, like taking half of your brain out to fix schizophrenia. I forget what, or lobotomy.
Or how smoking was approved as something that could help.
Or bloodletting.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yes, with
we
the
don't do
leeches.
these things anymore because
Yeah.
somebody questioned it. And now we
Yeah.
can't question anything, especially as nurses. If you question a doctor at the hospital, you're going to
Oh,
be
mercy.
like
Yeah.
crazy, and that doctor won't respect you anymore. But isn't that what you said? Again, beneficial. That's how we have moved in healthcare, and that's how we have gotten to where we are. But since post-pandemic, that can't happen anymore, and you can't have these conversations anymore. It's actually it's just sad. We used to have the pharmaceutical company come in, bring us this huge Italian spread of food, and then, what is it, Coumadin and the other Eliquis. So it was Eliquis would come in, and the pharmaceutical reps would give us all this food, and they would be like, make sure to tell the doctors to prescribe Eliquis.
Oh my goodness. Are you serious?
you
They
know
would do that?
Yes. So that is like, they came every single month during the pandemic just so they would get there. They would send us the food, but they weren't allowed inside the ER. So they would set up a virtual camera, and they would FaceTime us on Zoom.
I don't
and
believe that.
tell
That is
us that.
crazy.
Isn't that wild?
I do believe that because I had an experience in this past 6 months, I think. It was a different med. I think it was probably some kind of statin or something, where they were doing the same deal. They gave us free breakfast, and then they talk about the medication, and then they say, remind your physicians to prescribe this over whatever, But I mean, I guess that's what drug reps have to do. That's what they do. That's what they come to the hospital to educate
to
on.
some degree, healthcare is a business. I understand that.
Which is
To some degree,
totally
you gotta
is.
keep the money going to keep your doors open. But
yeah.
when you're trying to manipulate nurses to try to with food, and nurses are gonna eat that up. That's the thing.
yeah.
Nurses gonna be like in there, be like with their Italian food or whatever it is, and they'll be like, we got to tell the doctor
So you
because
get
this
more.
Yeah.
You know what happens with patients' family whenever they order food, and
yeah.
it's just like, man, they like the family because they kept feeding the nurses.
Oh, yes.
I wanted to talk about a post you have here on Instagram, okay?
Okay.
It says, well, first of all, let me cover what you have on your bio because I freaking love it. It says at the top, striving to mentor and educate and inspire RNs all around the world. Your second bullet point says, saved by grace alone through faith alone in Christ alone.
That's
Hallelujah. She'd be using her platform. And on one of your posts, it said, and this was pretty recent, it says, when did practicing nursing become more about Epic and Cerner telling you what tasks you have to do every hour and versus nurses actually critically thinking and seeing our patients holistically? What happened to the Florence Nightingale way? And then there's another one that says the conventional physician prescribes drugs to alleviate the symptoms of arthritis, diabetes, emphysema, but this treatment fails to attack the root of the problem. So, and you're posting this on for the public. Okay, you have over 3,000 followers on Instagram, and you're not afraid to speak out on certain things that may be sensitive. Tell me about why you're ready to start telling the world these hard truths.
Yeah, so I think that came with time for sure. It definitely took some time for me to build up the courage to start sharing this stuff. I was not like that in the beginning when I started my influencer journey. But it's true. I had these conversations with nurses at the bedside, right? And I would have conversations with my patients. I would want to care for them holistically. My life and my service to nursing, I have to strive to be honorable to the Lord, right? Just doing tasks through Epic and Cerner is not doing that. There was more that needed to be done. And I struggled as a nurse throughout my whole career, for my bedside career, that I couldn't really incorporate my faith as much as I wanted to. and truly how I wanted to treat people because of these stupid tasks that Epic
Yeah.
and Cerner
Yeah.
would tell me I have to do every single hour when they just didn't always make sense. And in nursing school, these care plans, we we learn how to treat our patient, right? But then we
Hmm.
get that taken away from us when we actually have to work the bedside
It's
because
Yeah.
we
true.
can't critically think for ourselves anymore. We have to
Right.
do exactly what the computer says. And if we don't chart it, we didn't do it. And then we might
Mm-hmm.
have a lawsuit one day. And I just
Yeah.
think the public kind of needs to know that, and nurses
Mm.
need to know that you're not the only one maybe struggling with this thought. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to get you back to the roots of what you learned in nursing school about Florence Nightingale, because I have seen so many nurses just do the bare minimum of what Epic and Cerner is doing on your task list, but not going above and beyond. And I don't think that's how those nurses truly feel, but I think they've fallen into this rut because they've been doing it so long like this that they're not really thinking for themselves anymore, if that makes sense. And I don't want to say that's all the nurses, but I can definitely see that in the nursing world.
Yeah. Why do you think that we've gotten to this place? Or do you think that nursing has always been this way? And if not, why are we in this place where it's all just a bunch of tasks?
I definitely don't think it's always been like this, just because I know from growing up in a nursing household that the things my mom used to be able to do with her patients, I couldn't imagine doing anymore. I know she would share that she would give patients back rubs every night. I could never imagine giving a patient a back rub now. And granted, we are supposed to help our patients by getting their family involved, right? That's something the family can do that takes a task off of a nurse. Hospitals are a business model now. Also, a lot of lawsuits happen. People are sue friendly. So I think hospitals have to make sure the standard of care is the same for every single patient, but we as nurses should know that not every single patient, if they're dealing with the same issue, need the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Like one diabetes patient is not the same as another diabetes patient, but according to Epic and Cerner, they're the exact same, need to get their meds at the same time,
Mm.
but
Mm-hmm.
we're taking away from our patients' autonomy. But I think it's because that standard of care
Yeah. It's
has
so
to be
it's
the
like they're
same.
covering their butt. It almost feels
Yes.
like
Yes.
hospitals are like, these things need to get done.
Yes, absolutely.
If they don't get done, we get sued.
Or we don't
Yep.
get reimbursed.
There
Or
you
we don't
go.
get reimbursed, right,
Mhm.
by insurance. And it's amazing. Here's what I want to get to. Why do we see, and I don't know if you heard this story. We just covered it last week, but it was, Kaiser Permanente, and it was the largest, union kind of demanding higher pay and better patient ratios and all this stuff. But we don't hear sort of this uprising of like what we're
Mhm.
talking about specifically. It's more about I need to get paid more kind of thing. I just don't hear nurses talking about this specifically, like wanting to. You know what I mean? If you talk to nurses, they're not going to, no nurse out there is going to want to rub their patient's back, right? But yet
Yeah.
you are talking about wanting to rub a patient's back. And I don't mean to make fun of you, but like,
Yeah.
I don't see nurses like you,
Yeah.
or people who are willing to do that.
Mm.
Well,
So
I think
why?
Well, sometimes you do see nurses like that. I actually work with a nurse who's been a nurse for maybe 20 or 30 years that still does that kind of care. But the problem that comes from continuing to do this and then meet the expectations in modern healthcare is you stay super late. She's known. If she ever listens to this, we love you. But she's known for staying until like 9 o'clock to finish charting because she has been rubbing people's backs. She takes time to put lotion on. You know who I'm talking about.
No, I don't know.
You know
who
who I'm
you're
talking about.
Is it?
Yes, you know who to talk about. It's okay. We'll talk about it later. But this specific nurse, everybody agrees. Every single nurse on the unit agrees that if they were hospitalized, they would want that nurse to take care of them, even if it kept her at work until 10 p.m. But like it's very difficult to marry the two together. Really caring, individualized care,
But
nursing
she's old
care.
school.
Right.
So-
That nursing care with the modern standard, especially
Yes.
with all the charting. It's like it's fighting an uphill battle whenever every meeting that we have is telling us what documentation we're not meeting, the standard we're not meeting, It
Yes.
feels very difficult to maintain the compassion and struggle to really show love to your patients when you hear the other and the logistics part that you're not meeting these standards. It's only 80% compliance, and I do wish that maybe more of us would stand up and fight for the care side, how we can care better.
So at the most recent hospital I had worked at, we had the computer on wheels. We had the cows. So in order to not stay late at work, because of all the charting that we have now, I would chart while talking to my patient, but I can't even give my patient the time of day to look them in the eye for a 10-minute conversation because of all the tasks that I need to do. And half of the tasks, to be honest, were like care plans. You would just have to check off that you did the care plan. You're not actually looking at the care plan.
So many of the things that are required of us, like, I know people do this. They will check it off and they won't do it. I know people do it. This is a culture that is in our, and we'll be like, oh yeah, and it's not a big deal. But like, no, it matters. It matters to do the thing
That you say you're doing.
Yeah, do the nursing.
Yeah.
And I think as Christians, we have to be to our word, right? If we're doing
Yes.
something, we are accountable to God, not to our job.
Ooh.
So
Yes.
that
Yes.
is where throughout the years, when I would do something like that, instant guilt falls in. I'm like, oh,
Yes.
Lord, forgive me for what I
Yeah.
just did. Because I'm
Yes.
accountable to him, not my manager or not to the
Yes.
hospital I'm working for.
100%. And that's where nursing falls in the category of a calling. When people say it's a calling, you are answering you're doing service to people, you're helping people. And that is not because, my hospital told me to, or because I need to pay my bills. We need to start looking at it as my license and my skills are so that I can serve God. And if it's not for this hospital, I will move to another place where those services are, I can actually do the full length of my service or my skills and use that to honor and glorify Him. And that's where I think that I think the majority of people aren't willing to take that sacrifice to say, okay, well, I would rather get paid less, but I am doing a better job, or I'd rather do a little bit more volunteer work so that I have that. And that's where you were talking about how you got burnt out, because people say burnt out as in, oh, I'm just tired. It's a lot of work. And it's like, yes, true. But it's not in alignment. Your purpose is not in alignment.
Yes.
That's
right.
what your video was addressing.
I would say I had 2 burnouts, you could say. The first one of what you're saying is that alignment wasn't there is when I was working as an ER nurse and I was doing CPR on a patient and we could not revive him. And I had another patient in the next room. I just left a room where the patient is dead. And then I go on over to the other room and say, hi, how can I help you? And being in the ER or just another room, it's like, oh, can you get me a glass of water? And it's like, why am I not feeling any emotion anymore
Yes.
with, I just watched somebody die and now I'm getting somebody a glass of water with a big smile on my face. And it's just like, I wanted to serve, but the heart, it's hard to explain. The heart wasn't there anymore. I was like emotionless, and I knew that's not who I was, and that's not who I wanted to be as a nurse. So that was a big reason I left ER nursing, was because of that one situation. Second burnout was what I talked about. Well, it kind of actually worked really well. I was travel nursing and then I was pregnant. So my contract ended a month before I gave birth. So now I'm not going back to bedside nursing ever. I don't think I ever could because of what I talked about in my most recent video was that I don't agree with what we're doing in the hospitals. And that's what I struggled with these past 2 years when I went back into travel nursing, because after the ER, I moved down here to Georgia for my husband's job. And then I went into outpatient infusion center. And then from there, I quit my job because I wouldn't get vaccinated. That's really it. This might be the first time I've ever shared that publicly. I think some people know that, and I've kind of hinted at that, but that was that was a big reason. Or I mean, that was the reason I left my job. So then I went into travel nursing because then I could pick what hospitals I wanted to work at and where I could work without being vaccinated. So then I did local travel nursing, and yeah, it worked out really well that I got pregnant. But throughout that entire travel nursing process, I struggled with what I was even doing. I wanted to serve those people, and I knew that I was honoring the Lord, right? That was my purpose every single day. And before I stepped out of my car in the morning, in the parking lot or in the parking garage, I say, Lord, help me honor you today and give me the strength to get through another 12-hour shift, because I was not enjoying the working I was doing, because it just felt like I was working for Cerner and for Epic and just doing and doing the tasks and the tasks. So that was definitely the second burnout, and that's why I don't think I could ever go back to bedside nursing if healthcare is going to stay the same way that it is right now.
We've talked a lot about the burnout and how you've learned a lot through your nursing career. Now, how do you take all of that knowledge, all of that experience, even the bad parts, the good and the bad, but especially the challenges? How do you feel that your background in nursing has shaped the kind of mother that you are, the kind of mother that you are today? Because it's been a shift. We're all aware that going from nursing, especially travel nursing, to being at home and being a stay-at-home mother is a huge change. I think I'm like combining two questions with one. Number one, how has your background in nursing changed you into the mother you are today? And number two, how has that transition been going home?
Yeah, so I think being a nurse, working as a nurse prior to becoming a mother has been wonderful, because I think personally for me, it makes me a little bit more laid back as a mom.
You've seen a thing or two. Yeah, this is not your first rodeo.
Yes. So I don't know about you, but growing up in a house with a mom, I never went to the doctor because, she'd be like, "Oh no, you're
not bleeding
okay."
out. You're fine.
It's not an emergency, so you'll be fine.
So I think I kind of have taken a little bit of that too. So if something happens, I know she will get sick one day. We live in a fallen world. We all get sick. But she has not gotten sick yet. But I know if she has a fever, I'm not going to rush her right to, the ER, because I know I can take care of it here at home, hopefully. Okay, let me go grab her real quick. She's screaming. So this is great that she's coming in
This
here.
is great.
Good timing.
I definitely have been looking forward to this transition. I know some people struggle with thinking about becoming a stay-at-home mom, but as a Christian, as a Bible-believing Christian, and not saying that moms can't work, I don't want to say that, but I know this is my calling. And I know that this is the season of life that God wants me in right now. And I am just thrilled to be able to stay at home with her. She is 3.5 months now. And I think of family members or friends who went back to work after 3 months of having their baby. And I actually almost started crying the other day, thinking about not being able to be with her at this young age and giving her over to somebody else. And in my eyes, it would be to raise her, because they would be with my daughter more during awake hours than what I would be with her. And, you know, it has been a transition. We've totally lost an entire income. And travel nurse money is good money. Like, it's great money. And it was wonderful. And we were able to save. But to lose an entire income is hard in our economic status, right? Like, in our world right now. So there are challenges there. We had to rebudget. We can't do some of the things we wanted to do. We can't, have a steak dinner every week or anything like that because our grocery bill is our grocery bill. We're huge Dave Ramsey fans. I don't know if you guys know
Yeah,
Dave
Dave
Ramsey.
Ramsey. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're
Debt-free
huge.
living.
Yes, debt-free living. So we're trying to just pay our mortgage off and then we're out of debt. But to lose an entire income is hard. It's challenging.
Yeah. Well, then I wanted to ask you, what's probably the greatest victory that you've experienced during this transition?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a hard question.
Yeah.
That really is. I almost want to say in the beginning, every day was a victory because when you're like I would say month 2 is when you feel like a human being again. Those first 2 months, they were hard. It was, I would say, a victory for me for even labor. I really wanted a natural labor, and I wanted a natural labor in a hospital, which of course hospitals have their policies.
Yeah.
Being a nurse, I was like, I know it's policy, but I'm not doing it.
I know my rights.
Yes. So I literally would not even let them put an IV in my arm. I just
Wow.
wanted to show up to the hospital and have my baby, make sure I was there if anything happened because it's my firstborn. I've never gone through labor before. And that was my first victory, was actually like having a natural labor. And just every day is kind of a victory. They're constantly growing every single day. It's like, oh, I got her to laugh a little bit more today. Victory. That's a little win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so good. It's so encouraging to hear that refreshing perspective that every day is a victory. It's a very positive way to look at the challenges, really, the challenges that are there in new motherhood. So with that kind of positive outlook, we hear it a lot that people are very wary of having children in today's world. Like this world is so messed up.
Yeah.
It's like really crazy, and I'm sure you had some of those questions in your mind, like, how am I going to raise her in this crazy world? And I just wanted to ask, what encourages you the most, given the state of the world today, and the fact that you're going to raise your child in this world? What gives you hope that she will be fine despite the world around her?
Yeah, so that was a comment I got while I was pregnant, and I thought it was always a great way to share the gospel because I know the Lord is sovereign. We were born for when the Lord wanted us to be born. She is born for when the Lord wanted her to be on this earth. And I know, and I pray every single night that the Lord saves her, but I know that, Lord willing, He will use her to share His message and share the gospel. And I just find hope in that and peace in that. And, we live in a crazy world, but when you read back to the Bible, they were doing child sacrifices.
It's wild.
It was crazy back then.
It was crazy back then, too. That's the thing. It's always been.
It's always been crazy.
Yes.
As long as sin was on this earth,
Exactly.
it was crazy. It's
gotta be crazy.
Exactly. So I just find peace, and I have a lot of sweet friends in my church and a lot of sisters in Christ that remind me the Lord is sovereign. He's sovereign over every single day. He's sovereign over the nights that she's not sleeping. He's sovereign over the nights that she'll sleep 13 hours, like last night. And He is the one who will keep her alive. He is the one who gives us our first breath here on earth, and He's the one who's going to take our last breath. And it's His breath that we breathe in our lungs every single day. So I just know that she's in his hands, right? Like the preschool song, he's got the whole world in his
in
hands.
his hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just find a lot of peace in that. If I wasn't a Christian, I definitely probably would be very fearful and have a lot of anxiety.
Yeah. I can imagine. There's every time we talk about this, it reminds me of the lyrics to a song "Because He Lives," and I'm not sure if you're familiar with it,
Yes.
but one of the verses says, "How sweet it is to hold a newborn baby and feel the pride and joy He gives, but greater still the calm assurance this child can face uncertain days because He lives." So what an opportunity that you've taken. I'm going to use this question that people have, the uncertainty and the fear and the anxiety to share the gospel. And I have one last question for you. What you would tell a person who's maybe listening, who feels like they're not in alignment with, like they're not living a life in alignment with what they know their purpose is.
Romans 12:2. I actually have it opened right here because I was hoping I was going to be able to share this verse. I was saved when I was 19 years old. I was not a Christian prior to that. And when I was 19, I was saved, and I held on to this verse. And this is the verse I always hold on to. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. And that's what I would tell them. If they're a Christian, that's what I would tell them. Probably if they're not a Christian, that's exactly what I would tell them.
I love this opportunity to talk with you. I just want to thank you so much for agreeing to chat with us for a little bit.
Of course.
I could talk forever.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I hope that this is not the last time we have you on the podcast. I think you have a lot to share. Your story is meaningful. It's valid. And as a fellow Christian, Lexa and I just want to affirm the decisions you've made to honor and glorify God. We had talked to Tori Jensen. I don't know if you've seen that episode about her decisions also according to
No, I
her
haven't.
convictions.
I'll have
And
to go listen
she's
to that.
yeah, she an amazing story, so I encourage you to go listen to it. But it's basically, we're not out here, trying to get everybody to agree with everything we have to say on the podcast, but we want to share different perspectives. And
Absolutely.
we want to affirm the fact that you are standing for your convictions, and we love to see it. And even though you're not working bedside, you're still a nurse. I just affirm that.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm doing nurse consulting stuff
Oh,
now.
there you
you
go.
go.
Fantastic. That's great. Good for you. And so if there's anyone listening that has been inspired by Catherine's story, Catherine, would you share how they can find you online and your different platforms?
Yes, absolutely. You can always email me. I love having conversations through email. So that's nursecatherine@gmail.com. You can find me on YouTube. That's my biggest platform, and that is Katherine Ann, ANN. And Instagram, it is Katherine Ann RN at the end of it.
It's Catherine with a K, people. It's with a K, okay? It's not with a C.
Yes.
Catherine with a K, and it's Catherine Ann on Instagram, ANN, no E. So Catherine Ann RN. So go find that, go follow her, and support what she's doing. And I also just want to encourage you to go and find us, Nice Veins Bro, on Instagram as well. And a reminder to purchase and support by getting your your merch. So I encourage y'all to do that. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to be a positive force and influence in healthcare and society. Que Dios me lo bendiga. When I would listen to podcasts before I became a podcaster myself, I didn't realize how much leaving a 5-star review helped. And so now on this side, I just want you to know that it really does mean a whole lot when people review and share the content. So if you enjoyed it, please share it with somebody and leave a 5-star review on whichever platform you use, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc.
And if you're interested, you can also find us on social media at Nice Veins Bro, or shop online at niceveinsbro.com. My personal stuff you can find under NENEPABLO, which is spelled NENEPABLO. I spend most of my time on YouTube making vlogs and videos, and on Instagram. So I would love to connect with you. And remember, be a positive force and influence within healthcare and society. It's all about God, wellness, and purpose here. Thank you for listening.